Hello, my name is Catherine Moore, social worker, mom, coffee lover, and founder of Social Workers Rise, where we inspire social workers to connect, expand their knowledge, and change more lives than they ever thought possible. I'm so excited you found my podcast. We will talk everything social work on every level from micro to macro. We will hear the stories of social workers who are doing big things, learn new skills, and most importantly, give you actionable steps to make a difference today. Let's go. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Social Workers Rise. It is your host, Catherine here. And this week we have a special guest. Her name is Melissa Romo, and I'm really excited for you to hear from her because she is in one of those, quote, non-traditional social work roles, but her job is really, really fascinating. And I think part of it, the best part of it, in my opinion, would be that you can do micro work and macro work all in the same day. So it provides a really, really great spectrum of helping people and specifically helping college students, which chances are, if you are listening to this episode, you have experience as a college student. So boom, you already have an in to this type of career because you know exactly what it feels like to be a college student and to know what kind of problems college students deal with and face on a daily basis. So her career is actually in student affairs. So she received her BA in communications with a minor in human services from Cal State Fullerton and a master's of social work in adult mental health and wellness from USC, University of Southern California. Melissa has over 7 years of experience working in higher education program and service development, grant and scholarship management, student leadership development, mass communication, and even holistic student wellness. I love this. I love it. She provides students guidance and support when trying to navigate financial matters, confusing policies and procedures, providing immediate and short-term emotional and psychological support. Her ultimate goal is just overall student development and student wellness so that she can support college students during their time there on campus. Her experience includes working with diverse student populations, especially first-time, non-traditional, first-generation students with disabilities, and veterans and military connected to promote access and retention, also to enrich the academic environment and just overall enhance your experiences as a student. So she is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to higher education support. We are going to hear directly from her about what does a day in her life look like? What type of work does she do? How do we get started in this? And what type of salary can we expect? As a disclaimer, Melissa is not an official representative of her college. She is speaking on her own behalf from her own personal experiences. So with that, we're going to listen to a quick ad from our sponsor, the Rise Directory. If you are a clinical supervisor or looking for someone to supervise you during your clinical hours towards licensure, definitely go check out the Rise Directory right now. And with that, let's hop into this episode with Melissa. This episode is proudly brought to you by the Rise Directory, a national directory of clinical supervisors who are dedicated to helping the next generation of clinical social workers grow in their clinical skills. The link is in the show notes. Check it out and tell every clinical supervisor you know about this directory. Hello, Melissa.
Hi, Catherine.
Welcome to the Social Workers Rise podcast. I am so excited to talk to you today.
Well, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate it, and I'm very excited to talk to you.
Yes, yes, of course. So I just love to hear from social workers who are working in what you could call non-traditional like fields, but
Hmm.
still using our social work skills.
Oh, that's great. I love it too.
Yeah, because I always hear all the time like, oh, what can I do with a social work degree? Or
Hmm.
even worse, they feel stuck like just working in a nonprofit setting or a government setting. And I try to tell them like, no, you have so many
There's so
amazing
much.
skills. Yes.
No,
So,
I definitely understand that, and I've had that conversation with so many people too.
yeah, I'm sure you have. So you work in a student affairs. Tell us what I don't really even know what that is. Tell us what that is and how did you come to like land that position?
Yeah, of course. And so student affairs is the department, well, actually, it's more the division on campus. I think every university operates a little differently, that supports students. And it really can look very different from campus to campus. And on our campus specifically, we have academic affairs that oversees all the classes and the courses, the professors. That's kind of where they all are. Student affairs supports anything that's outside of the classroom, whether it's financial aid, counseling, psychological services, student engagement opportunities, leadership, all kind of outside of that, athletics. It kind of just kind of falls in there. And then, we have the division of IT and then HR, right? So we have these different divisions, and student affairs is kind of like this catch all sometimes. But that's where a lot of the student support kind of lives in. And that's just in general the student affairs field. How I started in the field of student affairs was actually all just about time and place in my life. When I started college, my intention was to pursue a career in media communications, and that was my path. So, for my degree and my minor, I was required to do internships. And at that time, I was working off campus. So, having an internship on campus while I was, between classes, was really beneficial for me. And so, I found a campus program that needed a communications media intern. This was for the veterans program on campus. And as a side note, Catherine, my husband was about to discharge from the military, and so he's a military veteran, and so I figured that it would be beneficial to have access to these resources while
Mhm.
completing my requirement, and so this was this like dual benefit internship.
Sure.
And yeah, and so there it was where I really kind of became aware of this field of student affairs. I was a traditional commuter student. I just went in for my classes, left, went to work, and then got home. And so I didn't really have that on-campus experience until I did my internships, which was towards the end of my time in college. And so for those internships, for communications, I did all the programs, communications efforts, social media, graphic design, photography, kind of all things communication. But then I also had a minor that I had an internship for, and I had really enjoyed the program and what I got to do there, that I wanted to do my second internship there, but in a different role. So I transitioned into this programmatic support role, creating events, providing services and resources, and engaging the military community on campus. And that's kind of where it really started for me. When the program was about to be a fully funded department, it went from a small program in another department to its own department. They needed more full-time staff, and they really liked how I contributed to their efforts and brought me on as the administrative assistant office coordinator. I did that for a couple years and realizing that I wanted to do more and that I could do more. And so I moved into the program coordinator role where I directly organized these events and services and, while still managing communications. And I kind of ended up staying there for over 6 years. I engaged in different experiences. We ended up building a nationally recognized veteran center and supporting our military community. And during that time, I decided to pursue my MSW. I saw that the work really fit in what I was doing. I really wanted to dig deeper and be a better professional. And so it really led to me wanting to pursue my MSW.
Oh, that's interesting. So I love
Hmm.
how you took the different parts of your life, both personal and professional, and integrated them into your career to really help other people on a large, or as we call in social work, as a macro
Hmm.
scale. because you had personal experience with the military and being a spouse of a veteran.
Mhm.
And so you use those, that personal experience to then shape this program for other military families, and also, you know, being able to work within the system to really make a big impact. I think that's amazing, Melissa.
Oh, thank you. And it really was unintended. I was really a student wanting to complete all my requirements that it really like made me open my eyes to a world that I had missed out on because of my own identities. That I really wanted to engage it and support other students, seeing, the areas that I could be of support, and how, we can help change the student's experience on campus. And so that kind of just really developed into my own career path in that way.
Right, right. So I've heard a lot of struggles with students right now. I know specifically with social work students, and I'm sure with most students, but I've done my research specifically around social work students, that their mental health is really, really struggling and finances are really, really tight right
Hmm.
now. Have you noticed this across the board?
Yes. And across the board for me is a little different. And so my current role, I'm an assistant dean for student affairs, and so I have the privilege of really working with an awesome team and getting to lead the implementation of, strategic university goals to support first gen, underrepresented and Pell Grant recipient scholars. So right now, my scope of work is very specific to these identities. And so yes, when the pandemic kind of started, I was actually pretty new to that role. I had been in it for about 6 months, and we had already previously seen some of these, students asking for more mental health support services, finances. I was specifically working with students who were not really receiving financial support from families, so they were fully receiving Pell Grant. So we already kind of were in that world, but we definitely saw an increase once 2020 kind of came around, that even just across campus, the students were asking for more mental health services. Our CAP center really needed to address it in a different way. We had to create, shorter meetings, more group meetings, more group support. Even staff was trying to figure out ways that we can kind of mitigate some of those needs, and how can we be responsive.
And what is CAPS?
Counseling and psychological services. Sorry, I'm so used to
Okay.
the acronyms.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah, that's interesting.
Mhm.
I've heard that it's been a struggle for students and faculty alike, you
Yeah.
know, on both ends. So you mentioned your role was working with the dean. What exactly is your role again?
So my role is an assistant dean for student affairs, and so it's a little different than an academic college dean, and it's a little different than the dean of students. And so we're kind of this bridge between student affairs and academic affairs. On our campus specifically, it works per college, but my program is a little unique that I kind of stand alone without a college that I'm connected to. So I just support the program itself.
Ah, I see.
Mhm.
Okay. And what is a typical day like for you?
Well, it's definitely, first of all, it's going to be always managing multiple projects. My day is filled with all kinds of tasks. I'm never just, processing one set of applications, or it's really a variety of work that I'm doing. I really get to explore all kinds of things between student engagement, program development, crisis management, budget grant management, assessment. So it really ranges. So one day one moment I could be in meetings with a student discussing their classes, personal and professional development opportunities, maybe personal situations they might be going through. And then the next, I'm giving a workshop on how to build strengths, wellness techniques, access to resources, meetings with different staff on campus to collaborate on various events we're having, workshops and collaborations, being a part of committees. staff meetings. And so there's a lot of different things that my role and my days look like. And I still do a lot of the graphic design and communication, so that's still pretty much on the usual. And so my days really vary for sure.
Wow, it sounds like there's not one day that is the same, and it's really
No.
cool. I mean, it sounds like you have a hybrid between macro and micro position that you do all of it.
Yes, yes, very much so, and I do get to, really work with one-on-one with students, but then also be able to inform, how we want to support over 600 students, and then inform the university any recommendations that we have, or be a part of really different campus-wide initiatives. So it really does vary a lot.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, Melissa. Do you feel like the skills that you learned in your social work program and your MSW program have contributed to the success in your role now?
Absolutely. I definitely think there could be more people with a social work or just general human development and service backgrounds in higher education. I mean, every day we work with people. We are in the people developing business. And, having my degree in social work has really contributed to me feeling comfortable in doing that work, especially when it comes to crisis situations or change management, maybe understanding, pivotal developmental changes or stages, or the impact of intersecting identities, the whole biopsychosocial spiritual area.
Hey, it's Catherine here. I hope you're enjoying this episode. We're going to take a quick break to listen to this ad from our sponsor. Do you want to make your own podcast? Spotify has a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and even earn money all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters. And this is the platform that I use because it makes it so simple to record and distribute your podcast all in one place using your cell phone. What you need to do is download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
It really has, really made me feel comfortable in that work. And these aren't things that they always teach us in staff trainings. And that's one thing that I've realized being in student affairs is that it really does focus more on the student development piece. And there's professionals with all kinds of different experiences. They might have pursued a master's in biology and they found themselves, working as an advisor. And so they don't really teach a lot of it in the staff trainings. And so it really is kind of like a hands-on learning. So having the skills, from my social work degree have really lent to me feeling comfortable and really having a different kind of insight and perspective into the student experience, and really helped me be the professional I want to be in this space.
Yeah, that's really cool because I would imagine I can see how people from different degrees would be able to
Hmm.
fit in that role because I mean, we were all students, and especially if you
Hmm.
got your master's, gosh, you were a student for
Yeah.
a long time.
Yes.
And so, who better to speak on behalf of students and students' needs than someone who was just there, last year or something?
Exactly. And you're also working with staff, and sometimes we rely on each other and we collaborate, and so being able to also be there for your colleagues in a different way, and being empathic and being able to be supportive as well, and helping, as they kind of going through their process and we're going through our own process, we can lean on each other in a different way, I think.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. What would you say is the best part of your job?
Well, aside from the variety of work I kind of shared that I get to engage in every day, I'd really say is that being a part of this larger mission that really aims to support the development and growth of people. It's been a unique experience to explore and implement the ways that we can support and enhance the experience of people in this learning environment. So, either through supporting their own personal goals, career goals, their own mental health, it's really been a blessing to have that opportunity to experience all of that. And even if it ranges, whether supporting veterans returning from service or young adults straight from high school. I really overall enjoy being able to explore the ways we can support our communities and serve our communities in an empathic and equitable ways, and make and hopefully make decisions that provide transformative experiences while they're here with us.
Yes, yes, definitely. I love
Yeah.
that. What would you say is the most challenging part of your job?
Um, well, I'd say that just because it's the most challenging doesn't mean I don't enjoy it, but sometimes having to be the one to do it all can be stressful. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't just me. Student affairs is filled with staff who often have to wear multiple hats. Like I mentioned, student affairs does have this kind of catch-all. And yes, there are positions that are specifically, for counseling psychological services where, there's advisors, there's, financial aid counselors. And so there's all these different roles. But sometimes that, students don't really know who to go to, where to go to, what to do. And so wherever we can kind of make those connections, sometimes we do have to wear these multiple hats and have to know a little bit about everything. And so I definitely do think that everyone has the capacity, but it can be challenging to always try to do it all. So switching modes, one moment we have reports and data that we have to send to our leadership and kind of be tracking. At the same time, we're planning with various campus partners for semesters worth of workshops, contributing to the committees, and then having ongoing students with meetings, which again, like I mentioned earlier, can range. One meeting I can be talking about their classes, and the next, the students dealing with a crisis. And so, really kind of having to switch my mind and shifting on all of these roles can at times be challenging, especially when students really either trust you or they trust the department and they, consistently reach out to you for that, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so really knowing knowing the boundaries for that, leaning on each other, I think that has been most challenging, and I've seen it across with a few colleagues too, where it can be overwhelming to have to consistently be trying to do it all at the same time.
Right. Yeah,
So
and
definitely, yeah.
I've heard that too, that it's hard to have those boundaries,
Hmm.
even for people who are going from work and they're hearing these crisis stories and it's very
Hmm.
stressful, and then transitioning to home and family life. So, how do you set that boundary for yourself, or like the mental boundary?
It's definitely an ongoing process. I'll tell you, I definitely get caught up in my work a lot. I think almost everyone who knows me knows that I'm uh, definitely always working. But I think that's just because I'm driven by, feeling that there's always something I can do. And so I'm always working on honoring my own experiences, setting my personal boundaries, and just reminding myself that just because I can do it doesn't mean I have to, or, knowing when I can push it off to the next day, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Um, because then I just remind myself that it leaves room for my energy for the moments that I will need it the most. When things may become more critical, that I need to be at my best, right? And so there are certain areas that I've learned to, you know, Melissa, this can wait. Let's come back to this later. This doesn't need your energy now.
Hmm.
But also asking for what I need. I think that I have a really great team that I work within, that we've really just gotten used to asking each other for what we need. Um, and that's really given me the time to really practice that. Hey, I can't do it right now. Is it okay if I turn it in, if I work on it in the morning, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Can I have that extra time? Is it necessary now? Or hey, I can't get to this, would you be able to, to respond to the student on my behalf, right? So really being able to lean on each other and leaning on your team and really asking for what you need. And so I've been really practicing that at home too. My husband and I really lean on each other, and so I practice that with him, or I ask him, how should I approach this, really having someone um, to talk that over. So my team, my husband, and for sure mentors, finding mentors that can help you through these situations as well.
Yeah. So I'm hearing a lot of different ways that you do this, and it probably depends on each day. But for
Hmm.
one, you definitely have really strong working relationships and personal and social relationships with people who you trust and who you can rely on, and who can help you when you need it, and vice versa, when they need
Hmm.
help, that you are able to step in as well. It sounds like you prioritize what's most important and what can wait or what can be delegated to someone else to who may be able to help out with that. and
Hmm.
and asking for help, which is huge. A lot of times we, especially as women, we feel like we need to do it all,
Yes.
and we're the best person. No one can do it like us, right?
Yes,
uh,
and this is a very new practice for me. So it's definitely a lot of undoing bad habits.
Mhm. Yep, yep. And it's learned habits too, because a lot of
It is.
times I talk to other social workers who are given life circumstances. We've had to be independent. We've had to do it all
Hmm.
by ourselves. And we've had
Yeah.
to just like step up, and I've even told myself, I'm like, look, if I don't do it, no one else is going to do it. But but those are, ingrained stories that we tell ourselves that may not necessarily still be true, but we constantly have to kind of test it, and and get out there and ask for help and trust that the other person is going to do a good job, or at least get it done, right?
Exactly.
Done is better than perfect.
Exactly. And it's being able to discern when is, doing it to our best abilities is important and when does it just need to get done, right? Like you
Hmm.
said, better is done than perfect. And it really does help to have that awareness because, and this is a very common thing in our field is burnout.
Hmm.
And we definitely want to do everything we can to minimize that. So being having that our own awareness, especially if we're in the work of asking people to do the same thing for themselves,
Hmm.
definitely being able for us to also walk the talk essentially.
Exactly, exactly. Yep, that's so true. So, if someone is interested in getting started or getting into a role with student affairs, what can they do to really get started or get experience? What type of experience should they look for, or skills that they should be developing?
Oh, for sure. And so I have had this conversation with quite a few people, some in MSW, some in, who were just interested in higher ed. And I think it all depends. I think it depends on what people want to do in higher ed. Because like I mentioned earlier, there's so many different roles that people can get connected to. So specifically in student affairs, it might be doing some exploration about what role you want to work in. HR is a little easier to kind of find that connection. IT might be a little, easier to find that connection as well. Um, but higher ed is really depending on what you want to do, right? And so, like you mentioned earlier, we've all gone through schooling. So our own experience really does contribute to that. There are already probably some things that students engaged in that could lend to, them continuing to pursue a role in that. So, for example, if you participated in a group or a department or a program, maybe using those contacts or that experience to kind of build on that, right? So really finding what you want to do, and if you're not really quite sure, um, if you're a student or you just have the opportunity to gain experience, finding either internships or volunteer opportunities, those are really great ways to start. We love volunteers, and there's definitely lots of internships available. But even getting connected through like alumni associations. So, you have your bachelor's or your or your master's. If you went to two different schools, you have different areas and avenues that you can explore getting connected to the campus departments. But yeah, so really finding and also finding some direct connection to the work you want to do. So if let's say you currently do case management and you want to be an advisor, kind of finding ways to fill those gaps. There's already very similar things, right? You're working with people one on one, you're supporting their growth, their development, you're providing resources, but now maybe it's just that specific academic piece, right? How can you find ways to do that and get connected to departments. And so, one great way to do that is to do informational interviews. Um, you know, LinkedIn is a great way to find people, campus departments for the most part, for so students have access to information, have all their information on websites that you can reach out to them, ask them, hey, I'm looking to get into student affairs. I'd love to meet with you. Um, can I have, a few moments of your time? and make sure to ask for referrals. Who else can I talk to? Based on the information I provided for you, is there anyone else that I can talk to? And so really networking is going to be important, especially if you don't have that experience in kind of the higher um, ed piece. And there's also professional organizations. So there is NASPA, which is the National Association of Student Personnel Administrators. They do provide resources. It is it's kind of like a membership, but they do have like a blog. They do have journal articles and resources that they provide out. And then there's also Inside Higher Ed, and so it's insidehighered.com, which also provides a lot of information, resources for professionals, job opportunities across the U.S. And so this kind of just has like a whole, nationwide view of the state of higher ed and information on there. So that's really great to get informed of what's going on in higher education and what positions are really needed.
Yeah, yeah. And all the links are in the bio if you're interested. Thank you so much. I do want to know, I didn't give this question to you up front, so you can defer it if you want. But like what would be the salary that someone would expect, just starting, like if they're trying to negotiate their salary? Do you have any insight on that?
Yes, and so there's actually it depends. So I work for the state university system, and so they have pretty much all of that online. It depends. I would say it depends on your education and what you bring in. But it is a state system for me. And so there's kind of like a really set standard of pay.
Okay.
And it is union covered. So it can range anywhere from, 45K, let's say from very beginning kind of starting roles. And, administrators, it can range up to way above, six figures. And so I think it really there's a range of wherever kind of people are at in their profession and where they want to transfer into.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melissa. And where can people find you?
Oh, people can find me on LinkedIn. You're welcome to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to answer questions, meet with anyone. And my Instagram I've also provided to you. So people are also welcome to contact me through there.
Great. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Of course. Thank you, Catherine.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Social Workers Rise. If you loved it, please open up your iTunes, tap the 5 stars, and leave a short note on why you love listening to the Social Workers Rise podcast. Also, if you want to share it on social media, I absolutely love it. You'll have me fangirling all over you. Take a screenshot and share it and tag me at Social Workers Rise on Instagram and Facebook. Lastly, just want to leave a little bit of legal disclosure here that the information, opinions, and recommendations presented in the Social Workers Rise podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done so at your own risk. This podcast should not be used in place of professional advice, therapy, or clinical supervision. And with that, my friends, I'll talk to you next week.